I love the play. I loved it so much I saw it twice. And I was really pleased that I did see it twice, because the second time round I think I even appreciated it more and I enjoyed it more than even the first time round, because I was able to sort of appreciate. So I was quite surprised by a lot of the things that happened within the play, because it has quite a lot of surprising twists and turns. So to be able to see it a second time, I knew what was coming, so I could actually appreciate other nuances within the play. Dennis, I thought, was extraordinary. I thought he managed to portray a man who was deeply, profoundly agitated, going through a tremendous crisis in his life, having a sort of descent into madness, if you like, which was partly drug-induced, partly through lifestyle. About sort of life he was living, this rather constrained, conformist kind of life that he was having to live, which wasn't being true to himself. And through this struggle, he descended into other alternative ways of actually living, which were not ultimately good for him. And to see this remarkable portrayal of a man's descent into madness was I think the best portrayal I've ever seen in a play. And his agitation was extraordinary. It was electric to see him, his sense of agitation within the play was actually extraordinary.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I don't think it glorifies it in any sense or form. It does demonstrate that through drugs he did have some highs, that in the short term he got some enjoyment from, but ultimately there's a real interesting twist about as he struggles with his life and what he wants his life to become, whether ultimately the downside of the taking drugs was something that he wanted to pursue. And is this struggle with life between the life that he wanted, how he was using drugs to really have a release from the life he was actually in, I thought was fascinating. But ultimately it doesn't glamorise drugs at all. It just demonstrates how, in a world where people use drugs routinely every day all over the world, particularly in the UK and in America, that whether this is the life you actually want to lead. And it's this big question about, is this a life he wants or not? And I found his struggle with that really interesting. But he has to go through this madness and this agitation, this almost psychosis, to actually to explore how he wants his life to be. And it was a man sort of alienated from the person he was. The fact he was alienated from the man he was having to be somebody he wasn't. And he struggled to actually have a life that was meaningful to him and that would be ultimately one that he could survive and thrive in. I thought that was, for me, one of the main themes. I mean, I was fascinated to look at it from a sort of personality aspect, because obviously this man is I perceived him as not being a conformist in any sense or form, as somebody who's quite a creative individual, but whose creativity was being constrained by the life he was living. And what I thought the message for me was, don't be constrained. You know, if you've got a creative side, use it. And actually the world we sometimes create for ourselves isn't necessarily a good one for us and a healthy one for us. And that we need to have a life that actually enables us to, I suppose, would be to incorporate all those aspects of our personality that are us, and that we are able to explore all these different areas of our personality at the right time and the right place to have a healthy and a happy life, whereas he was unable to actually access quite a lot of his personality because of the constrained life he was living. And his use of drugs was just a way of trying to actually escape that constraint, if you like. That's what I thought that it was for me. The thing I came out with it was, go and live your life and try and live your life in a way that's good for you, and don't be constrained by the falsities of society and what have you. I laughed and at some points far too much, because I have a very loud laugh, and sometimes I can sort of be in create havoc around audiences who can no longer hear the lines because I'm too busy laughing. So no, I nearly wet my pants, but yes, it was very good. Very funny indeed.